welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be sharing with y'all all the books that I read in the month of July. Pulled up my stats, and in the month of July I read 12 books, which equals to about 3,973 pages read, which is about 128 pages read per day. I read 4 books written by male authors and 8 books written by female authors. I'm in a massive reading slump. I'm having a hard time finding books that are keeping my attention, so because of that, my ratings are all over the place. I had 1 5-star read, 1 4.5 star read, 2 4-star reads, 1 3.5-star read, 5 3-star reads, 1 2-star read, and 1 1-star read. So the first book I read in the month of July was 14 Ways to Die by Vincent Ralph. This was a super fast-paced YA thriller and I really enjoyed it. I feel like I read this so long ago because I did start it in June, but basically this book follows a high school senior. I think she's a senior. I don't even remember if it says. Anyways, it follows a high school student who is selected to be part of this weekly show. One day a week she gets to do an episode, and whoever has the most views gets to continue out the show for like 3 months or something along those lines. And she's trying to figure out who killed her mother, because he or she is still out there, and her mother was the first one murdered out of 14 total. So we just spend this story reading about her mother, the other women that were murdered, and who the murderer is, if he's still out there, blah blah blah. And it's just overall a really quick, fast-paced YA thriller that I really enjoyed. I gave it 4 stars. Next, I read We Were Liars by E. Lockhart. This book was just okay. It was very, very slow. I felt like it was the least bit thrilling. It was so boring. I don't even know what happened in this book. It didn't stick with me. I should have DNF'd. I don't DNF. I've tried. I can't do it. My goal for 2022 was to DNF more books. I've DNF'd 1, and like it still haunts me to this day that I have not finished it. I can't DNF. It's just not who I am, unfortunately, and this book literally took everything in me to pick it up and finish it. I don't remember what happened. I won't be reading the second one. I gave this book 2 stars. Next, I read A Man Called Uve by Frederick Backman, and this book was honestly very well written. Did it keep my attention? Not very much because of the reading slump I'm in. I gave this book 3 stars. However, I do know that there's a movie coming out and Tom Hanks is the main character, which is very fascinating to me, so I'll definitely be watching that movie. I don't exactly remember what happened in this book, but when I first started reading it, I got the impression that he was a grumpy old man, so all I could picture was Carl, Mr. Fredricksen from Up. So it was sad at some parts. Did it make me cry though? No. But I'm also a cold-hearted bitch apparently when it comes to books, so it is what it is. Gave this one 3 stars. Next, I read The Maid by Nita Prose. I gave this book 3 stars. It was just okay. I do suspect that the main character had some sort of autism. It was never stated in the book if she did or not, which was kind of annoying, but because it wasn't stated if she had autism or not, I just felt like she was kind of irritating. But if she had autism, then it would have answered a lot of questions that I had. Anyways, this book follows a young girl who lives with her grandma, I believe, and she is a housekeeper for a very prestigious hotel. And one day she's going in doing her regular housekeeping when she stumbles upon a very rich man who is dead in his bed. And she doesn't realize it right away that he's dead because she starts cleaning some other parts of the hotel room first, because it's like this big suite with multiple rooms, and then she stumbles upon him and doesn't realize that he's dead at first. She just thinks he's sleeping. Then she finds out that he's dead, but there's like a whole other like backstory going on with like his wife, and it's a lot. I don't remember everything that happened because I did read this a little bit ago, but I did give it 3 stars. Next, I read The Sweetest Remedy by Jane Agaro, and I loved Ties That Tether, so I was really excited for this one, but I felt this one was just okay. I gave this one 3 stars. I did like the premise of it. It was very good. I feel like if I wasn't in a reading slump, I would have rated it higher, but based off of Ties That Tether and this one, like Ties That Tether, it kept my attention a lot more than this one did, but the storyline of this one was also pretty fascinating. I think it was just because of my reading slump, honestly. I mean it when I say nothing is keeping my attention. Like 2 books kept my attention, like really kept me hooked throughout this month. This was not one of them. I gave this one 3 stars. But this one follows a mixed girl. She's white and Nigerian, and she never knew her father, and her father ends up dying and puts her in the will, and so she has to fly to Nigeria to meet her siblings and her siblings' mom, because her dad had cheated on their mom with her mom, so she was like the side chick. Her mom was the side chick, and then she ended up getting pregnant. But I just felt like it fell kind of short for me. I would have liked there to be a little bit more, so I gave this one 3 stars. Next, I read Honey Girl by Morgan Rogers, and I'm not going to go into too much detail about this book because it's literally the worst book that I've read all year, and it might be a little controversial why I say, so I'm not going to go into too much detail about it, but I did give this book 1 star. I didn't care for it when I read 3 particular words. About halfway through, the book was already kind of boring to me. It just felt like it wasn't going anywhere, and then I read 3 words that really irritated me about halfway through, and after that I was like, F this book, I'm not finishing it, even though realistically I was gonna finish it. Did I actually follow along with it? No, I found the audiobook, popped in my AirPod, did not even open this book, just waited for it to be over. Like, I did not care for this book at all. I gave it 1 star. Next, I read The Girl with the Louding Voice by Abby Dare, and this book was fantastic, so beautifully written. I really enjoyed it a lot. It taught me a lot about the Nigerian culture, which really fascinates me. It was very sad, but also very beautiful in some parts, so I did really enjoy it. Fantastic debut. I gave this one 4 stars. It was very, very good. I definitely recommend this one. But basically this book follows a 14-year-old girl whose mom dies, and her mom is very into her education. Like, her mom said that Dooney needed to go to school and get an education rather than marrying young, because in the Nigerian culture marrying young was very common, because they basically send their daughters off to get married young to some rich old man to help them financially. So when Dooney's mother died, her father was like, okay, you're not going to school, we don't have the money, I'm shipping you off to be married to this older man who had like multiple wives already. And it's honestly very, very sad, because she was a virgin, and then obviously with him she was not, and it was very sad in that part. And then she flees and does some other things, and it's just really, really captivating and moving, and I highly suggest this one. I gave this one 4 stars. Next, I read The Good Sister by Sally Hepworth, and let me tell you, this book was so good. This book was so, so good. However, I was prepared to give this 2 stars if it did not end the way that I wanted it to. But it did, so I gave it 4.5 stars. Rose annoyed the shit out of me. I've never wanted to punch a fictional character in the face so much as I did Rose. But I'm so glad it ended how I wanted it to. This was such a good, fast-paced, quick thriller. I will recommend this to everyone. I enjoyed it so, so much. I was nervous going into this because I did read The Younger Wife earlier this year and didn't really like it, but this one was so, so good. I am so glad I read this, and I picked it up hardcover for only $5, so I was like, I think it's meant to be that it's finally my time to read this book, because I've been wanting to read this for a long, long time. But this book follows a woman named Fern. Follows Fern and her sister, but mostly Fern, and they're twins. Fern and Rose are twins, and Rose cannot have a baby, or she's been trying to have a baby for a very long time and is struggling. So Fern decides to get pregnant and give her baby to her sister. So Fern finds this very attractive to her man. She thought he was homeless because he lives in his car, but he chooses to live in his car because he actually secretly makes a lot of money. Anyways, Fern ends up getting pregnant, and it's a whole thing, and I highly recommend reading this and going into it not knowing anything more than what I just told you. So good. So good. I cannot stress that enough. This book was so good. 4.5 stars, like I said. Next, I read Hidden Pictures by Jason Rekulak, I believe is how you pronounce his last name. And I was very shocked to read a 4.5 star book and then right after read a 5-star book. I enjoyed this so much. It did start out giving me the Turn of the Key by Ruth Ware vibes with like the live-in babysitter, live-in nanny type story. But the pictures throughout the book, like the drawings throughout the book, really spoke to me. And the ending was so far-fetched, so left field, so unexpected, but I was living for it. So I gave this book 5 stars. But basically this book is about a woman who is fresh out of rehab. She's had a rough past, but she's clean now. She's ready to get on with her life. So she applies to be a nanny or a babysitter. And she is babysitting this 5-year-old boy named Teddy. And weird shit is happening throughout the house. He's drawing weird pictures. And then shit hits the fan, it takes a turn, and it's fantastic. I will never stop raving about this book. I gave it 5 stars. Next, I read Things We Do in the Dark by Jennifer Hillier. This was my first Jennifer Hillier book, and it was just okay. I gave this one 3.5 stars. It didn't really stick with me, I'm not gonna lie. Like in the moment, like I remember I was like, wow, this is pretty good. But then at some parts I was like, okay, I'm kind of bored now, which is why I gave it 3.5 stars. I'm not going to rule out Jennifer Hillier though. I'm going to read more of her books. I just don't think that this one was very good, but I've also seen where people have enjoyed her other books better. Like there's one in particular, I can't remember the name off the top of my head. I'll put it down here on the bottom. But that book I really want to read. I'm not ruling her out, but this one was just a no for me. 3.5 stars. Next, I read Ruth Ware's newest release, The It Girl, and I have a love-hate relationship with Ruth Ware because some books are really good, some books are just meh. Like the Girl in Cabin 10, The Woman in Cabin 10. I gave that one 4 stars. That one was pretty good. The Turn of the Key, I think I gave it 3 stars. I think those are the only 2 books I've read so far, so I couldn't say too much going into this one. I was very excited for it and I felt like I was slightly disappointed. I did give this one 3 stars. Some parts were like very captivating. Some parts were pretty boring and slow and I just wanted the story to get on with it. So because of that, I gave it 3 stars. But this book follows a girl named Hannah and April is her roommate, the first person she meets in college. April's very vivacious, outgoing, can be mean, but isn't purposely trying to be mean. Just doesn't think before she speaks type of person. Anyway, she ends up being murdered, and to this day, which is a decade later, they're still trying to figure out who killed her because they did suspect one man and they put him in prison and he ended up dying in prison. But then Hannah has this weird feeling in the pit of her stomach that something is not right and maybe he wasn't who killed her. So she starts digging it up and things come out and it's pretty good. The premise sounds really good, which is why I was excited for it. I just don't feel like it was executed to the best of its ability. But I did give this one 3 stars. It was just okay for me. And the last book I read this month was Upgrade by Blake Crouch. This was my first Blake Crouch book, also a sci-fi, but I felt like it read more as a fantasy. Like when I was reading it, I got massive Vicious by V.E. Schwab vibes, and that's a fantasy. I'm not the biggest fan of fantasy. I'm learning to love fantasy. I really hope one day I do love fantasy, but this was just not it for me. I gave this one 3 stars. I'm not going to rule out Blake Crouch though because I've seen some reviews where his other books were better. So I'm not just going to read one of his books and be like, oh, he's not for me, because I don't know that. So I'm going to read more, but this book just didn't do it for me. So those are all the books that I read in July. I hope you enjoyed my wrap up. Please let me know in the comments below how many books you read in July. What was your favorite? What was your least favorite? I'd love to know. Please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, turn on post notifications to be notified every time I upload, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!